Picture this. It's the Ides of March, 44 BC. The most powerful man in the world, Gaius Julius Caesar, strolls into a Senate meeting. He's not going to be walking out. What went down in that room wasn't just a murder. No, it was a moment that blew the Roman Republic to pieces and literally changed history forever. Et tu, Brute? You've probably heard these legendary last words. They're what Caesar supposedly said when he saw his good friend Marcus Brutus in the crowd of attackers. Now, the real story is that he probably just groaned and fell, but this famous line, it gets right to the heart of the drama. This was a deep, stunningly personal betrayal. And that's the big question we're digging into today. I mean, what pushes men to kill their leader, their friend, a man they owed everything to? Was this really about saving the Republic? Or was it something else, something much uglier? All right, let's get into it. So let's start with the official story. The PR campaign the conspirators launched right after the murder. Their justification was actually pretty simple, and to a Roman, pretty powerful. They had to kill Caesar to stop him from making himself king. And back then, there was no worse crime you could imagine. And when you look at the evidence they presented, you can kind of see their point. The honors were piling up. He had a golden throne in the Senate, for crying out loud. His statue was being paraded around with the gods. He even started wearing these special red boots that Rome's ancient kings used to wear. For a lot of senators, the writing was on the wall. But here's the thing. Was Caesar really making a play for the crown? Or was this whole narrative just a really convenient excuse to justify a murder? Because when you start to look a little closer, the official story gets, it gets complicated. I mean, just take the whole incident at the Lupercal Festival. His right-hand man, Mark Antony, gets up in front of this huge crowd and offers him a diadem, basically a crown. And what does Caesar do? He pushes it away. Antony offers it again, and Caesar pushes it away again. The crowd went wild. If you really want to be king, that seems like a pretty weird way to go about it. And this is where it gets really murky, right? Because for every accusation, there seems to be another perfectly plausible explanation. That laurel crown he wore all the time, hey, maybe the guy was just self-conscious about going bald. That time he didn't stand up to greet the senators, the historian Plutarch says he was actually feeling sick and dizzy. And Antony with the crown, maybe it was just a bad joke from a guy known for his theatrics. Who knows? So if the whole stopping a tyrant story starts to feel a little thin, you have to ask, what else was going on here? What really pushed these guys over the edge? And the answer, it seems, has a lot less to do with high-minded politics and a whole lot more to do with personal grudges. And this brings us to the real dirt. We're about to untangle this incredible web of jealousy, wounded pride, and just pure ambition, all of it aimed squarely at one man. Now get this, the conspiracy was massive. We're talking at least 60 senators were in on the plot. 60! But to really get to the bottom of it, to understand what was driving this thing, we gotta look at the ringleaders. And here they are, the big three. First, you've got Marcus Brutus, who was under this insane pressure to live up to his famous ancestor, the guy who kicked out Rome's last king centuries ago. Then there's Gaius Cassius, the real mastermind, who was just burning with professional jealousy and a deep personal hatred of Caesar. And maybe the most shocking, Decimus Brutus, a man Caesar absolutely adored, even named in his will, who just seems to be driven by raw, naked ambition. These weren't just political rivals. These were guys with an axe to grind. And this pattern of personal insults, it runs through the entire conspiracy. One guy's mad because his brother's still in exile. Another one's in financial trouble and feels like Caesar didn't help him out enough. Others were ticked off about being publicly insulted or passed over for a promotion. It was basically a coalition of the resentful. Okay, so with this new lens of personal revenge in mind, let's go back to the scene of the crime. Suddenly, the Ides of March looks less like a noble political statement and more like a chaotic, bloody settling of scores. The day itself was just filled with tension and close calls. Caesar almost didn't even go to the Senate because his wife had these terrible nightmares. Someone even managed to shove a note into his hand, warning him about the whole plot, but in the chaos of his arrival, he never got a chance to read it. And then, the first blow from Casca. It wasn't even a good hit. It just glanced off Caesar's shoulder. The whole plan was already going sideways. So yeah, you can just forget any of those noble, synchronized assassination scenes you see in the movies. This was a mess, a panicked, ugly brawl. Caesar, remember, was a 55-year-old but still battle-hardened general. He didn't just fall down, he fought back. He fought back hard, until he was just overwhelmed by the sheer number of guys swarming him from every direction. When it was all over, they found 23 stab wounds on his body. Just think about that. The frenzy was so intense that some of the assassins actually stabbed each other by accident in their rush to get a piece of him. But here is the craziest part. In a truly stunning twist, a later analysis showed that out of all those 23 wounds, only one, the second one he received, to his side, was actually fatal. It just shows you how panicked and amateurish this whole thing really was. So, what did this incredibly personal, brutal, and frankly sloppy act of vengeance actually achieve? Well, the result is maybe the single greatest irony in all of history. The assassins had a name for themselves, you know. They called themselves the Liberators. They ran through the streets of Rome, holding up their bloody daggers, shouting that they had saved the Republic. But what they did was the exact opposite. See, by killing Caesar, they didn't fix the old system. They just blew a giant hole in Roman politics. This kicked off a whole new set of civil wars, even more brutal than the last ones, that ended up killing the Republic for good. And it paved the way for Caesar's heir, Octavian, to become Augustus, the very first Roman emperor. And that's really the question we're left with, isn't it? In their desperate personal mission to stop one man from becoming a king, did these so-called liberators, totally blinded by their own jealousies and resentments, accidentally create something far, far more absolute than anything Caesar himself could have ever dreamed of?